Hello, everyone. This is the Jimmy Hitchcock podcast, a talk about the truth. It's called Post, P.O.A.S.T, the real truth. Plan of action, stop talking. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. This is the Jimmy Hitchcock podcast. Thank you again. I'm going to go into a little bit more of my life, and then I'm going to get to the main gist of why I'm doing this whole thing, why I'm here, what's the purpose of my podcast. Just like I said, it's about nuance. I want people to look at both sides of things. I want people to have conversation. I'm not going to say a lot of popular things. I'm just going to let you know that right now. It's not going to be a lot of popular things that's going to come out of my mouth. But I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be forthright with my opinion. I'm going to say the things that I truly believe. I'm not going to say anything to get clicks. I'm not going to say anything to get likes. I'm just going to say what I believe to be the truth and the way we need to tackle what's happening in our community. And the first thing that I want to say is, at this point and at this juncture in America, we have a bunch of lazy people. And we have a situation where the next generation does not want to step forward and work. I'm sure everybody's seeing it. Like, we have a lot of lazy people. And it's not just coming from the black community, but the white community and some Mexicans is being lazy as well. Like the generations, the second generations of Mexicans are just falling into this dynamic that's the lazy dynamic, that they don't want to work or work as hard as the parents worked before them. Now, my thing is, why are we talking about handouts or things that we can get, like reparations or what? Why are we talking about the things like that instead of talking about the work ethic of this upcoming generation? If you look at it from my perspective, and my perspective is, this is a time for especially black males to become an integral part of America and lead and go into the forefront, because there's so many lazy people. So if you can get your son to think about taking on these managerial positions at the grocery store, at the McDonald's, at the Burger King, and work hard and have strong work ethic and fill some of these managerial positions, be a plumber, be an electrician. These things are missing in America right now, right? And being on construction sites or being the lead guy on a construction site. These are high paying jobs that they're available now. And the thing that we have to start doing is actually talking to the kids about filling these positions. Like being a plumber, that's looked down upon. And things that's being looked down upon are high-paying actual jobs. If you can get a guy to be a plumber these days and he owns a plumbing company, he can be a millionaire. So if we don't start talking about these things that are productive, and we can continue to look back on things that aren't productive or things that aren't positive, if we continue to look at the politics of it, and we're all about Biden and Trump and having these conversations about where we are politically, instead of worrying about or talking about what we're supposed to do or to do in our community, then we're going to remain in the place that we are. We're going to always be in a place of begging. And that's what I want us not to be, is beggars. Because we as a culture and as society, we're looking for people to do it for us. I was looking at it the other day. I was doing some research the other day, and it said that black people in 2000, in 2020, no, 2021, all right, 2021, we spent $1.4 trillion. I'm going to say that again. Black people spent $1.4 trillion. Now, if we got $1.4 trillion to spend on things, now, why can't we take a portion of that money and bring it back to our community for change? Why can't we take a portion of that money and come back and clean up our community? Why can't we? What's stopping us? The infrastructure is there. Like, they gave us the infrastructure. Just look at the platforms that we have to communicate and to speak on, to meet on. Like, we have the platforms. We could do video calls on Google or any type of platform. What's stopping us from getting there? What's stopping us from focusing on our community? What's stopping us from cleaning up our community? Why can't we have communities that look like the white communities and pick up the paper, pick up the trash? Why do we throw the trash in our communities? Why do we just desecrate the place where we live? What is it in us that we want to take the decrepit, bad, make our environment horrible path? I just don't understand it. But I'm going to stop preaching. But I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me, and I'm going to move on to the topic that I really want to talk about, which is our community. All right. I have a lot of passion for it. It's our community, but it starts with the black male, and the black male, we're not making it better. We're doing most of the littering. We're doing most of the damage. We're doing most of the killing, almost all of it in our own communities. We're doing like irreparable damage to a place that we call home. And I just don't understand the mentality of it. I really don't. And I like to talk about it. I like to get some therapists in here. I like to get some psychologists in here and have discussions about what does it take for a person to look upon another person that looks exactly like them and want to kill them or want to fight them or want to say something that's negative immediately when you don't even know that person. It's a psychology that it's been like hundreds of years in the making. But I want to talk about it. Also, we're going to talk about me leaving college. All right. I left college. I got drafted. I left college. I got drafted. I got drafted in the third round. I was supposed to go in the top 10 picks. Right. I was the number one corner on the board. Warren Sapp was the number one rated. He was the number one rated guy on the defensive side, and I was number two. Going into after the combine, I was rated a lot lower. But going into the combine, I was the rated number two defensive player in the draft. All right. So when I get to the combine, I knew it was going to happen, and the guy that was my agent, he was telling me that it was going to happen to me. He said, as soon as they check your knees, you're going to fall in the draft. I knew that was the case, but I was hoping that it wasn't. The reason why I was hoping that it wasn't is because I knew that if I got drafted in the top 10 picks, that it would change my whole dynamic and change my life and my family's life forever. So I was hoping that I would go in the top 10 picks, right? So I would tell hey, I was telling my family back then, don't come. I don't want you to come to my draft party. In fact, I just wanted to be me and John. John was my roommate at the time, my best friend, still my best friend to the day. John Bradley. I was telling him, hey, I don't want nobody there but you, right? At the time, I had a baby mama and I had my daughter, so I wanted my daughter there. But I just wanted to be left alone because I did not know what was going to happen. And my family showed up, all right, about 20 of them. And that was fine that they showed up, but I was so nervous during draft day. And the draft's coming up this month, so it's good kind of telling this story. But I was so terrified and nervous that I was going to fall in the draft. So the first 10 picks go by and I don't get picked. Here's my family there and they're waiting on my name to be called. It was kind of a clue that they weren't really talking to me like they were talking to the other first rounders. Some of the first rounders that I met, they were calling me saying, "Hey, you get a call from such and such. They saying they're gonna pick me in this time at this time and da 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 da. You getting any calls?" And I was like, "Nah, I'm not getting any calls, bro." And they was like, "Oh, what? You're not getting any calls?" And then they would, "Oh yeah, I forgot about your physical, the whole ACL thing. Man, you might fall out the whole draft. You don't know, man. You might." I was like, "Man, there's no way I'm gonna fall out the entire draft." But in the back of my mind, that's kind of what I was thinking. So the time goes on. Time goes on. It's a long time. Like they do one round in a day. Back then they would do 3 rounds in a day, 4 rounds in a day. Well, hours had gone by and I hadn't gotten picked. All right. My family ended up leaving me and John. That's how long it was taking. They had to go back down the highway. So I ended up being me. It ended up being me and my best friend. And as soon as they left, I got a call and said, "I think they're gonna pick you next." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Yeah, I see it on. I saw it because I had turned the television off. I didn't even want to watch anymore. I was just waiting on. I was just waiting on the call." So they was like, "Yeah, I think they're gonna pick you next." But William Henderson just got picked up. He was a fullback to play with us, so I ended up getting picked. And anyway, make a long story short, I get picked in the 3rd round. I end up being a New England Patriot. I get picked by Bill Parcells, who's actually my favorite coach at the time. I follow him. I follow Bill Belichick, who was on his staff with the Giants. I was a football fan, in the biggest way, big Dallas Cowboy fan. When Jerry Jones actually held up my X-ray or my MRI to my knees on TV in the 1st round, and he held up my X-rays and it was a report by Mortensen that said Jimmy Hitchcock's gonna fall out of the top, blah blah blah. Draft day is not my favorite day. A lot of people will love that day in their journey, but that's not my favorite day because I had a lot of things going on, but I really appreciated the blessing, especially when I got to camp and ended up getting my first check, which was $375,000. And that $375,000 check was most money. I sit there and I put the check on the bed and sit there and stared at it for like 35 minutes, thinking that, oh my God, I'm super rich, not knowing that that's no money, but I mean it's money, but I'm saying on the football scale. But so I get picked. I have a horrible rookie year, horrible. I have a horrible second year. I played sparingly. I ended up getting couple picks in my second year. Got benched, but we ended up going to the Super Bowl when I got benched. We made a run for it. I had a roommate named Curtis Martin, who was one of the most dynamic runners in league history. Ended up making the Hall of Fame. He was my roommate for 3 years, and he jumped onto the scene, and he was a dynamic, unbelievable player. Ted Johnson, Ty Law was in the Hall of Fame. I remember being in the back room watching film with Ty, laughing, playing around my rookie year. But he ended up getting the start because he ended up being the first rounder. Ty goes in the first round to the New England Patriots, and I go in the third round. Curtis Martin goes right behind me in the in the third round, and then Ted Johnson I think goes in the second round. So that nucleus ended up coming in, and then the next year we ended up getting Adam Vinatieri, Lawyer Malloy. Um, Already we had on the team Willie McGinnis, Drew Bledsoe, Chris Slade. These are guys that New England fans they know, people or football fans they know. But it's been a long journey. I'm 53 years old now, so some I'm sure kids don't have a clue about the people I'm talking about. But these guys were dynamic players in their day. I ended up playing for Pete Carroll the next year, and we had a pretty good team. I ended up starting that year. The next year, I got traded to the Minnesota Vikings. That year, I had 7 picks, 3 touchdowns, and I predicted it in the summer with a guy named Torian Gray. We watched film, and we watched film all summer long. And he was like, "What can you do with this system?" I was like, "This is a system built for me." Minnesota was definitely built for me. They had a bunch of veterans. That's where I ended up having some dynamic teammates: Randy Moss, Chris Carter, uh, John Randall. It was just an incredible place with some incredible teammates, and Denny Green was my head coach, who was African American, and he ended up passing away. I ended up playing with Reggie White. I ended up playing with incredible players. I played with a few Hall of Famers in my life. Um, after the whole NFL thing, um, there was just a focus on what do I do next. See, the NFL was, I said earlier, and if you looked at my first 2 podcasts, my focus was purely the pros. And I had came I had come through a team environment. All it was competitive sports for me from the time that I was very, very young to the time that I was 32 years old. And I had played competitive sports since I was 7, whether it be in the yard, whether it be in the field, whether it be with my boys playing baseball in the bottom, playing football in the bottom, hot ball in the bottom. I had been in sports, and sports kept me out of trouble. It kept me focused on the goal. So I don't think I had a lot of discipline outside of that. Had it not been for the athletics, I don't think that I would have had as much discipline as I did. And I didn't have a father figure in the household. And I didn't have my mom in the mom that I had when I was very young. I had to basically raise myself along with my older sisters giving me direction, teaching me how to fight, teaching me how to defend myself, teaching me how to be a man was taught by my older sisters. And my mom teaching me things like if someone approaches your house or disrespects you at your house, you shoot them, you kill them. That's the mindset that my mom would give me. Now I'm such a nice guy. I'm just a nice guy, so those thoughts were kind of foreign to me. I was a fighter, but deep down inside, I just knew I wasn't going to be able to cross the line to kill someone or actually harm someone in a way that debilitated them. That's just not in my character. So that's the nice guy in me, right? So once I left the NFL, I didn't have my structure. It was like the NFL or football in general was like my parents. It was like my father and my mother because it kept me studying, kept me eligible because I wanted to play. So I had to be eligible. So I had to study. I had to make the grade. So it kept me eligible. It kept me in shape. It kept me eating the right things. It kept me doing the right things, being on time. I was never late in a situation. Actually, I was late one time, and I actually wasn't late. I was 3 minutes early, but for Bill Parcells, that was late because he would say, be there 10 minutes early. And I got fined, literally, I got fined for being 3 minutes early. So he taught me early on, don't ever be late. So after that, I was never late again. Never late to a meeting, never late to anything. So it kept me structured and focused. Now, when I end up retiring, it's like it's like a death almost. I lose my mom and my dad. I lose all my structure in a metaphorical way. I lose both, right? Because that's my structure. And the money that I had, I made some money. I made good money. I signed an $11 million deal, but it was all backloaded. I really made like $4 million off that deal. Ended up getting like two and some change. That ended up being, I got family. I ended up giving them thousands of dollars. And long story short, it wasn't, to me, enough money to sustain me. But that was just my thinking. It was plenty of money to sustain me. And I don't think that I was grateful for it. And that's the reason why I lost it. I ended up going to jail. And I ended up doing federal time on a fraud charge because in days leading up to me losing like $1.8 million in my account I was trading in, days after that, I end up doing things that, were just detrimental to who I was. And that led to me being completely broke and doing some stupid things, right? Instead of me just sitting back and saying, okay, let me collect myself, get myself together. I still have my name. I still have everything as far as my health is concerned. Let me step back and just reassess my situation and make a calculated, decent move. Instead of that, I panicked. A guy approached me about a situation with a house where you can make some money, and I ended up going too far, doing too much in being involved with that, and then ended up in federal prison. I go from a 7,500 square foot house to a cell. So these are my life experiences. Okay, and I'll tell you more. And I'm writing a book. Hopefully, people will buy it. But I'm writing a book, and I just wanted to give you some details of what I've gone through. And I'll talk more about things, various situations. Like I had a situation where this guy was in my neighborhood selling weed. Da, 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 da. I ended up going to jail for something that I didn't do, but I'll talk about that later on. And this is a podcast, again, some about me, some about politics, some about the community, some about just nuanced thinking. It's about the community, but it's about a conversation in the community as well.